So, Brenda Towne, why don't we start by you telling us who you are, who you represent, and why we're having this conversation?
Sure. So I'm just Brenda Towne. I'm an average citizen here in New Hampshire. I went through an extreme situation with my family in family court, which for a lack of a better term, got me kind of aware that maybe we need to take a closer look at kind of what's happening because I just have been so unplugged. So with that experience, I ended up getting involved in election process. And I represent myself. I work with a whole group of volunteers. I kind of glue things together across a bunch of election integrity efforts that are going on in our state. And yeah, and so from a professional standpoint, I am right now I manage large business units in contract manufacturing. I was a group controller for $1 billion division at HP. I'm on the board of the largest employee-owned company, or second largest in the country. And I just have a passion for making sure that our process is run well.
Okay, and you sent me some fascinating information. I've been kind of dilly-dallying in this arena for years. I got involved in politics early in New Hampshire 2008, and I met Ed Nail, who of course is the chairman of CNHT, had been chasing voter fraud for years until he passed a year ago, January. And so I'm familiar with a lot of the issues that we've had. I'm familiar with the Attorney General's office not doing anything about it, or the Secretary of State, no matter who the governor was. So when people send me stuff, I'm like, all right, well, let's take a look at it, because as far as I can tell, almost anything is possible at this point.
Right.
And you just sent me some information that was submitted to the Committee on Voter
Confidence.
And let's talk about that.
Okay.
I don't know where you want to start, but you've been through it, you detailed it, you created a great slideshow of it. So just throw it at us.
Well, do you want me to kind of start with what's in there, or the reason why I went? What's the best way to hit
Let's
it?
just talk about the stuff you discovered.
Okay.
And go from
All
there.
right. So again, I was the mouthpiece for hundreds of people who volunteered to kind of get our arms around what's happening in New Hampshire. Now, to back up a bit, I gave you a little bit about my background. To me, it is shocking and appalling that as a state, we have never audited our election process to see what's working, what's not working, if things are broken. So this group of people decided to take it upon themselves. 2020 was a year that was very contentious. A lot of crazy things happened because of COVID. And so we used that year as our benchmark year to kind of dive into the details. And this is where I got my feet wet into the election process. The material that we shared at the Voter Confidence Committee represents kind of a summary of those pieces. So the first thing that we presented was a complete machine audit of the state. So the team did thousands and thousands of 91As. I think, we lost track, but it's got to be close to 10,000 91A requests across the state. And included in that were the requests for every machine tape from every town. And so we put together a complete analysis for the state, everyone to see, and it includes in the report across the top, it's a town by town view, and it shares what the voter registration looked like in the town. So you get a feel of, is this a red town, a blue town, a lot of independents? So you can see that right across the top. And then we gave a breakdown of how the ballots were cast in the town by mail-in ballot or in person with that same distribution. So you kind of, across the report, town by town, get a great idea of how the ballots rolled out. And then the body of each page has a visual picture of how every machine performed in the town. And it's quite easily visually to look at the machines and then bounce it against those distributions. And what we found is that across these towns, there were machines that performed considerably out of bounds to a statistical relationship to the distribution in the town for how the voters would vote based on their party. And so we highlighted that. We also highlighted the voter growth by town so that you could see the historical vote pattern, and then, these large jumps that appeared in the 2020 election. And just to back it up, what was really a big change for New Hampshire, I believe historically we had about 9% same-day voters, not same-day voters, sorry, absentee voters. And in this election, over a third of our votes were absentee. So there was a lot of change going on, but the machine audit itself demonstrated some things that are definitely worthy to digging into. We could go on and on about the machines. I'm not here to talk about the machines per se. I just, when we look at these different vectors that affect the election process, this is one big area that we need to look at as a state. And frankly, we're living a day and age, like as I said, I'm on a board of a company, I run a large business unit. Some of our biggest concerns across the Fortune 10 companies, 100 companies, 50s is IT security and cybersecurity. They're spending millions and millions of dollars on it. Our own Pentagon was hacked in the SolarWinds situation for 9 months, didn't detect it. And so here we are with these antiquated voting machines in New Hampshire without a credible audit on them in a sole source supplier who we've had in place for decades. All right, so that was one part of our submission. The other part of our submission was we've gotten a lot of pushback that New Hampshire has done an official audit. We've done a thorough, I love you, dog, that we've done a complete audit because of Wyndham. And just for everyone to be clear, that really wasn't an audit. It was a check in on how the ballots were cast in the machines relative to the hand count. What we were able to show is that during the course of the audit, the memory cards were all wiped out to pre-election status. We presented the video of the audit team using the LHS instructions, which again is a violation of any business control that you would ever put in place. But they wiped out the memory cards to pre-election status. And then we have, of course, federal law stating that that's completely illegal to wipe out election evidence. And then on top of that, we have a lead auditor, Harry Hursty, who has on record filed an affidavit when he was testifying in a Wisconsin court case. And in that court case, he signed his affidavit that hacks can be wiped out if they reset the cards, and it will no longer be present once that is done. And I'm paraphrasing him, but we presented that information as well. The other piece of information on this Wyndham audit, and I don't want to beat this up because it's kind of old history and everyone spent a lot of time on it. But one of the other important things that we drew the committee's attention to is there was a blogcast with the second auditor, Philip Stark. And in that blogcast, he told the audience that the way that you could tell if a hack had been removed from a machine during an audit, it would be when the physical ballot count was closer in number to the reset mechanical count of the votes. So imagine if you reset the cards, ran the votes through, you get up a calculation there by candidate. When you compare that to the hand count, your numbers would be much closer to each other than the day of the election. The election day, which had the hack present, their numbers would be distorted relative to the hand count. And that's exactly what we saw in Wyndham. We used all the information from the Secretary of State's website, and we prepared this data for the Confidence Committee as, again, another element of why we aren't confident in New Hampshire elections. But as always, we get challenged, show me the evidence. This is all anecdotal. You can't prove it to me. So we did do a canvas. And when we went out to do the canvas, we did 2 towns. And what we found is on average, roughly 12% of the people that we canvassed didn't vote in the election. So that's a pretty high number. And when we trended that, what we saw was that there was a considerable percentage of prior owners. So people who had sold a home or moved out of a home, who had votes cast in their name, as well as the current homeowner. So we did a bit of a desk canvas, and we went through home sales, and we compared them to the voter rolls, and we found 1,000 examples of people who had sold their homes to new owners. We documented the date of the sale, the deed transfer, who it was sold to, and we presented those to the confidence committee as well. So 1,000 examples of people who sold their homes, but had votes cast in their name in the 2020 election. Well, then with a little bit more help, the other thing that we presented to the confidence committee a couple weeks later was we presented over 15,000 names using the help of a national organization. We took the people who had filed for a permanent change of address. So you go to the USPS, you say, I'm no longer living at this address, please send my mail to this other address. And it's a permanent change. And by the way, if you submit a permanent change of address, they will send back a physical piece of mail that you have to sign saying, yes, I did request this. And it's a federal crime, punishable by imprisonment or punishable by fines if you falsify this information. So we took this information and we provided the confidence committee the USPS record locator of the individual's request to move. We presented their voter ID, their name, the address that they were registered at and where the vote was cast, and then where they moved to and the date it happened. So all of this information, hard data, was presented to the confidence committee. And their recommendation was presented to the Attorney General and the Secretary of State. And we gave all of that information to the Attorney General and the Secretary of State. And unfortunately, when I have checked in to ask for progress, there is no response. There's no updates of what's happening with any of that work. Now, that's the stuff that was given to the confidence committee. And these are big reasons why we don't feel confident in our elections, or the election process, I should say, because there's gaps. But we also found, using the same technique, we took our current New Hampshire registration and we ran the current registration against all the people who moved over the past 4 years using the USPS database. And we provided the Attorney General and the Secretary of State 66,000 names before this midterm election. And we told them, look, this is a big problem. We need some safeguards in place because this could be huge voter disenfranchisement. We already have 15,000 examples exactly like this of people who did have votes cast in their name in the 2020 election. The response was a little bit surprising. The Friday before the election, a memo was sent out from the Secretary of State and the Attorney General's office as a combined memo to the election officials and poll challengers. And it informed them as part of this memo that they couldn't use this used data as a source of challenging any votes, only if they had personal knowledge. So instead of feeling confident that our state is concerned about these gaps that are happening in our election process, we feel they're ignoring us. And there's a huge concern that this confidence committee, which was founded with the mission to address the declining voter confidence, is going to gaslight us and not come forward with these really big issues. And I haven't even touched on chain of custody on ballots and the totally out of control printing, distribution, and lack of control on our absentee ballots. It's absolutely shocking. But putting that aside, the process has to be fixed. The state owes the people of New Hampshire an audit. We should be auditing the 2022 midterms to see what we did. How'd we do? Where are the gaps? How do we fix these? And we shouldn't be gaslighting citizens who are trying to bring to light things that are very concerning and have them addressed. So that was a long dissertation, Steve, but I hope I gave you kind of the reason why a lot of us feel that we need to fix the election process here in New Hampshire.
I mean, obviously, people in power try to rig elections. They always have. So here's some opportunities for us to say, well, there's discrepancies here. I mean, and you've only given me a portion of what you guys discovered. I mean, we can do this again another day and go over the rest of it, and I hope we do. So, but thank you for sharing that. And I don't know, I don't think people even begin to realize what a big mess this is.
Well, I think it's because every time a leader stands up, they say, everything's great. We are on a really tight ship around here. And it's an echo chamber. I think the other difficult thing is being part of the confidence committee and sitting through, a lot of the testimony. I put 1,000 affidavits on the desk of the confidence committee, and I had a senator come up right behind me and say that the people who were questioning the election are conspiracy theorists. And so I think we have to come together and recognize that this is in everyone's best interest to fix the broken stuff, right?
Yeah.
It really is. And that's what I want to be able to impart, and I'm willing to personally, along with this whole team of people, support and help in any way we can.
Well, thank you for taking time to tell us about this. And obviously I don't know how many thousands of hours of work it took to get this information together, but you've done the yeoman's work, and we've got the details and the data, and we intend to share that, and we'll see where it goes from here.
Well, thank you so much, and have a great day, and talk to you later.
All right, you too. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.